Gonna be my AoE4 tier list for multiplayer 1v1, at least on launch day, as of when I'm recording this, and I'll certainly post this to YouTube afterwards. So, this is going to be based off of my experiences playing AoE4, casting AoE4, thinking about AoE4 even, and just, these are the conclusions I made after, especially this past week, of just, again, playing the game a bunch, watching top players go at it a bunch, and I'm fairly confident, actually, with these tier lists, or like how the tier list is going to be. So, also, again, this is just subjective. It's just my point of view, man. So it's not like this is like set in stone or anything like that. Also, I am going to be ranking like all of these civilizations like within the tiers as well. But if you like ardently believe that like the civs should be like up one or down one, like it doesn't matter that much. This is just, you know, to give people an idea of what the civs are going to look like in terms of what are the best ones for multiplayer and which are the ones that we're likely to see in upcoming tournaments. So, with this in mind, let's start. We're just going to go down the list here of the civilizations listed in-game. So, we're going to start with the English, as they are the first civ listed. And the difference between the tiers is that C tier are, in my opinion, the civs that are just kind of weak right now. They just don't feel like they have enough going for them relative to the other civs, although they're not, like, bad. Which is why we don't have, like, an S tier and a D tier, because the balance isn't, like, that broken. B tier are going to be, you know, the ones in the middle, right? They're still going to be decent civs, and you'll still see people pick them in tournaments, especially if they like the civ. And then the A tier is just going to be the best civs right now. So starting with the English, they're going to be in the B tier. So the thing with English is that they are a solid pick. You know, like they are the beginner civ, they're the all-rounder civ. Their eco bonus, it's not the fastest in the world, simply because you don't build farms early in the game, especially, you know, in Age of Empires 4 relative to AoE 2. But still, like, once you get those farms going, you're getting a very strong food economy. Also, the Council Hall landmark for making longbowmen super fast is great. When I've seen... Yes, this is going on YouTube. What players will do is they'll go for the Council Hall, and then go for 2 TCs right away. And then you can use your longbowmen and with your network of castles bonuses to just hold off while you get that strong economy going, and then you can push out from there with like longbowmen and spearmen. And they are just a pretty strong civ defensively. You can just hang in there and then go on into mid-game. The issue that the civ runs into is that once you're sort of past the point where longbowmen are all that great, because they just don't have that raw base damage, especially versus things like knights and men-at-arms in the mid to late game, then the civ just does feel a little bit weaker. So it's more the early to mid-game focused civ and not so much the late game focused civilization. You do have a very good economy in late game, but like your landmarks in late game are not that great. Like the King's Palace and White Tower landmarks are literally just like a keep and a town center. Like it's not the most impressive thing in the world. Your siege, you have like one unique tech for trebuchets, but that's only like that's an Imperial Age tech for a trebuchet, which is a Castle Age unit when you want to be making bombards versus buildings most of the time. So yeah, that's going to be the English. Not a bad civ, but not what I would call quite top tier. So yeah, we're going to do this. Chinese is going to be next, and they, wait for it, are also going to be going in the B tier. So yeah, Chinese going to be in B tier, a little bit worse than English. Again, if we go to the Chinese here in the tech tree, yeah, I'm so lazy for making YouTube content on stream. That way I'm completely unable to interact with my viewers in real time and answer questions. Especially since this is a release day tier list. Chinese, again, they're kind of like a decent all-around civ. Their issue lies in the fact that, one, they're really hard to play. And this is a very relevant fact for, like, release day. As, you know, the three-star difficulty civilizations are all just, they're so unique in how you play them out that their tier ranking, at least independent of balance changes, is going to go up just as people figure out how to play them. But as they stand right now, there's just so much inefficiencies, especially in regards to the other civilizations. Now for Chinese, you can get a good eco. Their faster buildings is nice, and then you have your imperial officials to boost up buildings, and you can go for a really strong rush. The Barbican of the Sun is nice in letting you sort of hang in there. And then mid-game, the Song Dynasty, faster producing villagers. Again, you can get a really good eco with the civilization. The Jugenu, it's like super good until your opponents get armor upgrades, and then they become terrible, unfortunately. Simply because, you deal like 4 damage times 3. If you get 1 armor, that's like reducing their damage by 25% as opposed to just 1 damage, right? So that's a bit unfortunate for the Civ. In terms of like different sorts of units, the Fire Lancers can be amazing for raiding, but that's more of like a late game thing. And I guess in general, the Chinese late game is super strong. You have the Nest of Bees, which just completely annihilates enemy units. But it's also just tough to get there. The Palace Guards are really nice because they're faster than Men-at-Arms. Even having a little bit less armor isn't as much of an issue, especially once you get the Battle-Hardened tech to increase their HP. There we go. And it's just, it's a difficult Civ to utilize to their fullest potential. But I feel like people will get there. It's just, as it stands right now, I can't really say that Chinese are, and better even than English, just because English is so much more straightforward. So, next is going to be the French. And I think this is going to be no surprise to people that they are going to be in the A tier, or first A tier civilization. The French are not by, like, far and away the best Civ in the game, but they are good. They are about as easy to play as the English, but they're just so much stronger and more flexible at, like, every stage in the game. You have faster producing villagers. You have, like, the Persian bonus from AoE2. You have the Burgundian cheaper eco tax. You have the Japanese cheaper drop-off sites. And you even have trade bonuses in the late game. And yes, they do have the Feudal Age Hulk, which is very relevant because on water maps, they are either the best or second best water civ. Honestly, there are only 2 civs that can really compete for like the top spot on water map, and one of them is French. I'll get to the other one in a little bit. But yeah, having Hulks in the Feudal Age means that it's almost an auto win against almost every civilization, except one, on water maps. Just because Hulks, they're attack ships, they're stronger than arrow ships, they beat arrow ships, and every other civ can only make arrow ships in Feudal Age. So it's a little bit rough. But like I was saying, what's great about French is just their flexibility. You have the Feudal Age Knights, which can be really strong with the Night Rush with their School of Cavalry landmark. Just get those Royal Knights going. And getting the Chivalry upgrade to regenerate HP, it's cheap and it's super strong. But it's like, that's not all the Civ has going for it. In Castle Age, you have your Arbaletrier, which can be really, really hard to deal with as they get extra armor, like they get extra pierce armor, but then they can also get extra melee armor, and it's an amazing accompaniment to your knights. And then late game, to like finish things off, you can even get the College of Artillery to go for your royal cannons, super good against buildings, and then you can go for Ribaldicans and Culverins both, unlike most other civilizations. In fact, I think every other civilization. So it's just like you have all of these strong options that are applicable on like so many different map types and against like every other civilization. Like it's hard to go wrong with French, which is why they're probably like the best beginner civ, like in every Age of Empires game. It's just your eco bonuses are applicable in like every single situation. And yeah, your military is flexible enough that you can go for a rush, you can go for a more economic approach. And yeah, they're a civilization that they're not going to get like that much stronger over time as people figure them out, because people haven't like completely figured out French, but they have figured out French more relative to other civilizations. And I would say that their only real weakness is that they don't have anything that's like incredibly oppressive, except on water. But they don't just like have that, insane deadly late game, especially. Like their cavalry is great, but it's not, something that can just auto win you the game in late game. But yeah, they're still really, really good and probably just the best overall civ, especially for new players. Next is going to be the Holy Roman Empire, and they are unfortunately going to be in the C tier. not the greatest civ in the game. And if you've seen my civ overview rundown for the Holy Roman Empire, which I posted today on my YouTube channel, you can kind of see why. Yep, they are not holy, not Roman, and not an empire. It is true. The thing with the HRE is that, okay, you have your prelate eco bonus in Dark Age, and that can, bump up your villager work rate by 40%, and that's, like, good, right? But you need to, like, spam that ability constantly. It's not automatic, right? It's not like you can go, like, an auto-inspire, which is kind of weird, and it means that, especially as you go throughout the game, it's less practical to constantly just be spamming prelate boosts, unless you have the Aachen Chapel here, which inspires units in a large radius, which is why I honestly really prefer getting this landmark with the Holy Roman Empire. Also, they are somewhat reliant on relics, because, you garrison relics inside of outpost keeps and towers to increase, like, all of their stats, and that can be really good, don't get me wrong. But you need a relic for that, right? And that's just not something you get in all situations. Same, I guess, with water maps, but honestly, other than French and one other civ, it doesn't even matter, because they all lose to French and that other civ on water maps. Also, like, a lot of their bonuses defensively. So there are so many, like, unique attacks that just benefit your defenses with the Holy Roman Empire, and that doesn't really help unless you're defending, right? I know that sounds really dumb, but, like, the English Network of Castles bonus, that can help you push. We even saw that in the game I was casting earlier today. Increasing the health of walls, towers, and gates, like, that doesn't really help you push. Getting extra building armor. Your influence mechanic is the super speed build, emergency repairs, which, again, like, that's great, but it's only good if you're defending, so it doesn't really help you get ahead a lot of the time. And lastly, what they're missing is anything that's really that good other than infantry. They have really good infantry. They have the best infantry in the game. They even have a unique unit that's infantry. But it's also not, like, one that you can just spam to your heart's content. You have to, like, mix it in to an army of, like, men-at-arms and spearmen. And you have all of these upgrades. And you can get men-at-arms in Feudal Age, but English can get them in Dark Age, man. It's like, they're the infantry civ, and they're sort of like one-upped by an archer civ with Britons, or English, whatever. And it's just like, beyond infantry, you lack that flexibility. Your archers, cavalry, and siege are all, like, completely generic. And it just makes you a bit more one-dimensional than I think you'd want in a civilization. So I would like to see them get a little bit of a buff. They're not bad. Like, if you really like infantry and defense, it's like, go ahead, play the Holy Roman Empire. That's why it's A tier, B tier, and C tier. There are no D tier civs, and there are no S tier civs. But next is going to be the Mongols, the first civ that I haven't done an overview with yet, at least as of I'm recording this. And they are going to be, surprise, 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 in the A tier. I am rating them lower than French, though. So the thing with Mongols is, like, they're the opposite of French. They're really strong, but they're hard to play. And Mongols, at least as far as, like, I'm concerned, with the time frame of me recording this, broadcasting this live, as the game comes out, people just don't have the time sunk into Mongols to really sort of leverage all of their strengths. And they're still really good. It just goes to show what a strong civ it is. That said, they do have a distinct weakness, and that's in late game. We've seen that several times now, where if Mongols get to late game and they haven't really been able to, like, close out a game against their opponent, they just kind of Mangudai are sick in early to mid game, but they don't really have the damage in late game. Your Ovu bonus is so good for rushing because you can build stables in Dark Age and also make scouts and horsemen, either or. And you can just completely get all up in your opponent's face before they can even hit Feudal Age and make really anything to defend against you. And then the Mangudai, they're going to be just running around shooting you as you're trying to catch up to them. Again, it can just be really difficult to deal with. Scouts having 10 damage versus buildings is honestly pretty crazy. Because you can plunder 50 food and gold by igniting enemy buildings, which is like, you just run in with some scouts and then you start attacking, like, mining camps and stuff like that, that are just too far away from the town center. And it puts your opponent in such an uncomfortable position no matter what. And they even have a nice, like, trade potential if you get the silver tree. And yeah, I mean, they're just a really strong civ throughout the early to mid game, and then like, you know, early Imperial Age, they can be good. It's just they kind of fall off at that point. And they're, again, very tricky to play. But they're still like, if you have the APM to play Mongols, they can be one of, if not the best civ in the entire game. But they're definitely like a strong civ, like about as good as French. Anyway, next is going to be Zerus. Here we go, guys. They're going above French. I think Roos are the single best civ in the game right now. Roos are pretty insane. They are a little bit more tricky to play than the French, but I feel like the payoff is enormous. So if we go into their tech tree here, they have this bounty system, right? Where you generate gold from just killing wild animals. And it also works towards like bounty tiers where it increases your food income, and the gold generated from hunting cabins, which are, they double as mills. And if you build them near a forest, they'll generate gold as well. So you can get a super good economy. On top of that, you also have a feudal age knights, like the French. So just having that at your disposal is really good. And you get plus 20 HP. It's not quite as good as the French cavalry bonus, but it's still, you know, something. Like, Roos have good cavalry. And just getting those knights in feudal age means that you have this aggressive potential that is just so difficult to deal with for most civilizations. You got some good landmarks as well. In feudal age, you have the Golden Gate, which is like a super good market. The High Trade House is also great for your economy. And then in late game, you can either go with a super strong keep or with bonus to siege. And speaking of which, again, sort of like French, they're very well-rounded. Now, they don't have anything for their infantry. Their infantry is pretty much just generic. But like, archers and cavalry are still generally better than infantry, although it's much closer in AoE4 than it is in AoE2. Oh yeah, also you have fortified palisade walls, so your palisades, although you don't get stone walls with Roos, your palisades are a lot stronger, which is good for just holding on early on. And wooden fortresses, you know, if you have the hunting bonus for your food and gold income, then you can have the wooden fortress, which helps your wood income, because if you build one near lumber camps, then the lumber camps are generating more resources. Mid-game, you also have some really good options as well. You have horse archers. It doesn't say they're a unique unit for the Roos, but they actually are. No other civ has the horse archer. It gives you that mobility option in mid-game. You can pair them with your knights, you can pair them with horsemen, and again, just having horse archers, it's so good. The only other civs that have horse archers are the Mangudai for Mongols and the camel archers for abbasids, which we'll get to later. So yeah, having that flexibility is great. You can also upgrade them to have more range, which is super nice. And then late game, it's all about the Strel Seaman. They're an expensive unit, but they're actually still cheaper than the hand cannoneer. What you do is they are a hand cannon. If you just plop them down, they will get a faster fire rate the longer you just leave them like standing without moving. So if you just plop them down, they're just going to massacre everything except like good anti-infantry, anti-archer siege units in late game. So it's just like insane. The unit will like almost single-handedly carry you through the late game in so many situations, on top of having good cavalry. And like I said, you do have good siege. You have the high armory, which gives you unique siege technologies. Like you get extra siege bonuses, which is really nice. Although you don't really have anything at your siege workshop normally. Still, having that option in late game is going to be really nice if you sort of need that little late game oomph. And then lastly, you have the warrior monks, which it's not like the most important thing in the world, but you can use it to boost the damage of nearby units. And it's kind of like a better version of the prelate, although you can only get them in mid-game. And, it can help you turn a fight even better. So I actually do think that Roos they're harder than the French, but they have a higher ceiling in terms of how good they are. Yeah, definitely, if you're looking to play what I consider to be the best civ in the game, then I would go with Roos, at least with the balance of the launch build. All right, rewind. Okay, so the civ that competes with French on water is Roos. One of the other reason that they're super top tier is because they actually can compete with French on water. So what you do, guys, it all revolves around their Lodya ships. So what you do is you make your Lodia fishing boats in Dark Age, and then you hit Feudal Age. Like, the second you hit Feudal Age, you turn all of your fishing ships into Lodia attack ships. And you can get, like, 6-7 arrow ships out before your opponent, the French player, even gets, like, 1 Hulk out. Like, you can just sail your fishing ships across the map as you're clicking up to Feudal Age. And, like, you still have a good eco with Roos, right? So then you can just, like, win water instantly. So you can even beat French. And then you definitely beat, like, every other civ on water. So that's, like, another reason that Roos are number 1, in my opinion. Unfortunately, we go from the what I call the best civ in the game to the what I call the worst civ in the game with Delhi. Oh, Delhi. Delhi. They're not bad. It's not like, oh, they're an auto loss. But the research all technology for free, but at a much slower rate, it's kind of an issue in early game. You're so slow. You need to get scholars, which are 150 gold, and then you garrison them, and they still take a long time to research. It actually doesn't show the correct research time in the tech tree. It's like far, far longer than like 1 minute. So what it means is it's harder to get your technologies going as fast as your opponent, and then beyond that, you gather from berry bushes faster, and that's like all you get for an eco bonus. It's not that great. And then for military, you get infantry are able to construct defenses, which is like, well, it's like okay, not amazing. Again, it's just defensively minded. And then really from there, it's just you need to go into late game where you can get your elephants, which, yeah, elephants will smash everything once you can get to them, but I don't see how you can get there when you're so much slower than like every other civilization. It's just really tricky. If you're playing like a team game, maybe they're going to be better in team games. I haven't seen a ton of them, but maybe like a map like Black Forest, then Delhi can work, as they are super strong in late game. It's just so hard to get there. So that's why I put them even a little bit lower than the Holy Roman Empire, because the Holy Roman Empire is at least like, they're at least faster to get going than Delhi is. And the Prelate Eco is at least decent, whereas the Delhi Eco, it's not that great. Anyway, one more civ, and it is my personal favorite civ, and it is the Abbasids. They're going at the top of B tier. So the Abbasids are like, I love the Abbasids, and they're really good. I don't think they're quite to the same tier as Mongols, French, and Roos, but they're still quite powerful. One of the reasons I actually like them is because if you look at the top civs, Roos, French, Mongols, they all make a lot of cavalry. You get camels with Abbasids, which is great, as they are still strong counter-cavalry units like they are in AoE4. I love me some camel archers, and the fact that you can get them in Feudal Age and that they are a trash unit is really, really nice. They also get bonus damage versus spearmen. They cause enemy cavalry units to deal less damage. And it gives you just very strong military options, especially against the civs that are also really good right now. You have your House of Wisdom, which means that you are a little bit slower to Feudal Age much of the time, but you don't need to spend villager time to advance an age. Like, you can just keep collecting resources, which is really nice. And then you can get actually a super sick eco with this civilization with... you can reduce the cost of all text by 30%, and you can, very importantly... I don't even know where this is. You can reduce the cost of villagers by half. Yeah, this one right here. So they only cost 25 food. It's like, you can get such good eco and tech with this civilization. Your Golden Age bonus is not that hard to... I mean, it's like, it takes a while to get going, but once you get those houses down and you can start getting your extra gather rate, it's like you have good economy, good tech, and good military options. Their only real downside is that their late game isn't, like, amazing. They don't have, like, a ton of, super late game bonuses. I mean, it's decent, right? But it's not as good as some of the other civilizations. Camels can work. Camel archers can still work in late game, especially as a trash unit, which is nice. But again, they're more focused on eco and tech much of the time. And they're not as fast of a civilization as all of the A-tier civs, so I think that's kind of the... they're a little bit of a downfall, but I do think they're the top of the B tier. I even rate them a bit higher than English. So yeah, that's going to be my starting AoE4 tier list for day one. Of course, this will likely change as soon as there's a balance patch, but hope you enjoyed the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, definitely leave a like and subscribe and all that stuff if you found this helpful in some way. But yeah, see you guys next time, unless you're on Twitch, in which case you were here right now. Lol.